Welcome to What the World Needs Now with hosts Tom Whisinnand and Josh Monroe. We hope that you're able to leave feeling encouraged and ready for another day of changing lives in the field of education as we speak with inspirational teachers from across the nation and world about what keeps their spark lit.
In this episode, we head to Benedict Arnold's house to talk with Rebecca Rogers, or as you may know her, R. Rogers World from YouTube and TikTok, about how she used emotions to make history connect with her students. Without any further ado, Rebecca Rogers.
All right, Rebecca. Well, thank you so much for being here with us. For our listeners that don't have the privilege and honor of knowing who you are, could you tell us who are you, where you're from, and what's your role in education?
Yeah, my name is Rebecca Rogers. It's really kind of hard to figure out what I am at this point. I don't really know. I started out as a high school social studies teacher. This was my fourth year, and I actually just left the classroom about a couple of months ago. And, even though I'm not in the classroom anymore, I think I will always consider myself a teacher. I'm always going to be in the education sphere, but I especially rooted in social media. I started social media about a year ago, a little bit more than a year ago, and I am a social media teacher, a TikTok teacher, if you will.
Well, and you do a lot on YouTube too.
Yeah, I do have to start adding that to my repertoire. I started YouTube in June-ish, maybe the end of May, and we're getting really close to 700K, which I am very proud of. Very proud of.
Where do we look for you? Where do our viewers look for you so they can follow you on YouTube, follow you on TikTok?
On both TikTok and Instagram, I'm R. Rogers World. My students made it up in fourth period last fall. They said, Miss Rogers, it's really your world, and we all just live in it. And I said, you guys get me. I get yes. So that is how our Rogers World was born by my fourth period world history students last fall. And then on YouTube, I think you can just Google Rebecca Rogers, and I think I'm the first person that shows up because I've been testing it a lot this weekend at the Miss America competition.
Well, and I love that you're there because you're staying at a pretty cool place, and especially with your background in geography, tell us a little bit about where you're staying right now.
So originally I was staying at the Mohegan Sun Hotel, and I was supposed to leave today, which is Tuesday. I was only staying for prelims. And then my friend, I'm here supporting Miss Utah. I met her on social media, absolutely adore her, even though I'm from North Carolina, here all about Miss Utah. And her family was like, no, stay with us. Like, you would even really like the Airbnb house we're staying in. And I was like, why would I enjoy this house? They said, this is the house that Benedict Arnold built hundreds of years ago. And I said, no way. They're like, yeah, like it 100% is. There's not even like real lights in half of these rooms, which is cool. Like, as you can see, this is my ring light. If you're looking at, can they see me?
They can see you. They'll see you.
So
we put it on YouTube and then onto like Spotify and stuff.
This is what I look like without the ring light. This is what lights are here, which is so cool. Like, it's so cool, and I love it. And there's little historical plaques everywhere, and it's very fascinating. And so I still have to explore the entire thing because I just got to this building today, but I am absolutely stoked. And I'm gonna have to send Josh all of the photos because I was besides myself. I probably nerded out to my husband for a good 20 minutes before he was like, Rebecca, I have to go to work. And I'm like, okay.
That is awesome. What an experience. What a cool experience.
It's been cool.
So what made you get into education? You wanted to be a teacher for what made you get there?
So actually, and I always get asked this question, and I feel like a letdown because my road to education started in fifth grade, and I just remember vividly sitting in my math class. I don't even like math, but for some reason, my math classroom thinking, I want to do this one day. Like, no big event, no nothing. I just vividly remember sitting there in Miss Emery's fifth grade math class thinking, yep, this is for me. And then about 10 years later in high school, I couldn't figure out what subject I really meshed with. And I had the craziest A-push teacher. He was absolutely insane. Sorry, are they being too loud?
It's the house that Benedict Arnold built. What can you do?
There's like 30 people in this house.
I still can't get over the fact that you're at that house.
I
No,
know.
that's cool.
All the kids told me that it's haunted and I'm sleeping in the attic. So like if I don't call you tomorrow, Josh, that's why. But anyways, so when I was in high school, I had the craziest A-push teacher, and you either loved him or you hated him. He definitely was a weird one. He was very unique, but I loved him. I thought he made learning so interesting. It was so weird that it promoted an emotional response, and I loved that. And that's when I decided that I wanted to tie all of my teaching strategies to some sort of emotional response. The craziest thing that I can think of that he ever did, was telling us about the Peggy Eaton scandal in A Push. And he grabbed a Barbie doll that was complete, like it was just a Barbie doll without any clothes on it, and had her in the box with like a little baby jumbling around in the box, and passed it around as a historic artifact of Peggy Eaton. And it was just weird. And I was like, is he allowed to do this? But at the same time, this is how many years later, and I still remember everything about Peggy Eaton and who she was and the scandals around her and the politicians involved. Like, it was very interesting.
Josh, do you know who Peggy Eaton is?
I have no idea, but I didn't want to say that.
I mean, I was got a Barbie doll in a box. I want to know who Peggy Eaton is.
So she was like the daughter of a politician, and she basically was very promiscuous, and I think she ran one of the first, like, I can't even think of the word of it at this moment in time because it's been such an exhausting week, but like not a gentleman's club, but like
A brothel?
yes, thank you. I was like, what word am I looking for? Pretty much, yeah. And she kind of, and she was tied to these politics, and like this was during Andrew Jackson's presidency, and the women that were married to some of his cabinet members were so offended by this that
Wow.
oh, I'm sorry, she wasn't the daughter of one of the politicians, she was the wife of one of the politicians, and the other wives were so like, no, she has to go. John C. Calhoun's wife stormed Andrew Jackson's office and was like, you have to like get rid of her. Like, we tried to threaten him straight up, like, this is ungodly, this isn't okay, we want her gone.
Yeah.
And he looked in their eyes and he's like, if you ever bring this up to me again, I'm gonna fire all of your husbands. And they just left.
That's a story.
Now we know, Tom.
I learn something new every day. Thank you for sharing that, Ms. Rogers. That's it.
And Rebecca, one of the things that I like that you share on your social media platforms is on this day in history. I mean, even though you told us like you're not in the classroom, like you're still teaching people. Like, those are some of my favorite things to watch, so that I can be like, hey, did you guys know this happened on this day in history?
Josh, you just made my entire day. First of all, I think that's, I don't know, I can't speak for all teachers, but I know a lot of teachers who are like, I don't want to say they're teachers first because I still consider myself a teacher first, but they're more of a teacher than they are in love with their subject area. But I love history. I knew I wanted to do something with history because I just loved it. I love the stories. To me, history is a story that just goes on forever. And even though I'm not in the classroom teaching, I didn't want to give that up. I'm very passionate about it. And it really just makes my whole day that you watch them. So I know I'm not just posting them for my mom.
You post them for Mr. Monroe too. Nala loves them.
I need to tweet about this.
Rebecca, one thing that I love that you said was that she wanted to tie every learning experience into some kind of emotion. And I find that the emotion in education, the emotion in classrooms is like the silver bullet. If you can have kids experience an emotion, the response that they have towards learning is just so much more powerful. Could you explain a little bit, like, what are some of the strategies you used, or like when did the light bulb go off in your head about the emotional response with kids or learners?
I just remember every big topic that I remember from Schaefer's AP class, which again, I was 16? This is now a decade later. Everything was tied to some kind of emotional response. And if you want, I can give you an example of my most drastic example. And
Yeah.
I'm warning you, this is world history and this is a very like passion area for me. So like it's a little dark, but this is my biggest example. So I got this idea during full on online learning.
Mm-hmm.
The kids were stressed out, online wasn't working for a lot of kids, a lot of teachers. And I remember my department talking about how the kids are struggling even though they're being assigned less work. And my department was trying to figure out why. And I thought about it, and I was just starting my World War II unit. And I always have kids. I'm a granddaughter of a Holocaust survivor, and this unit is always my favorite, just for many reasons, and I always have kids that really don't understand why these things were able to happen. And so I got the idea, and the kids were going on and on about their work one day and how there's too much and all this stuff. And we were just about to start fascism. So I said, "Oh, um, do you guys want to know, why?" My kids always say that I lie to them. They never know when I'm being true because everything's a simulation in my class. I just had to preface with that. It's like a thing. They never know when I'm being serious and it frustrates them. But I said, "Oh, you want to know why, you guys have so much work going on? Like why you're drowning in assignments?" And they're like, "Yeah." I said, "Well, this is on the down low. But word from the county is that we are given quotas to give to our students to make sure that they don't get out of the practice of learning, that they don't become lazy, that they are just on top of their game. And that's why you're so stressed out. It's not that you're choosing Netflix, it's not that you're choosing to go hang out with your siblings or something. It's that you are purposefully being thrown under the bus because they don't want you, like, for whatever reason." And the kids were so angry. And you could even hear kids in the background telling their moms to get on the phone. Mom's ready to email the county.
Superintendent.
And I sat there for a good 15 seconds thinking, "Oh my God, this is either going to be so great or the worst thing of my career." Like, and then after about a good 15 seconds, I snapped out of it and I was like, "Gotcha." And they were like, "What?" And I was like, that is how that happens. Someone with a little bit of authority says, "Hey, you're upset. Not your fault. It's their fault. They're trying to hurt you." And that is exactly how. And I like pointed to 3 kids in the back. I said, "I see your mom's on the phone in the back. I see them picking up. Tell them to put it down. I want to keep my job. Don't let them call anybody." But it was like those kids will never forget that. I will never forget that because I sat there like, "Oh my God, what did I do?" Like,
It got an emotional response from you too.
I did. But after I was like, "Was that too much or was that good?" And they were like, "No, like that was perfect, Miss Rogers, because we get it now. Like that makes so much sense." So I do it all the time now.
I kind of think that like social studies, geography, those are subjects that can sometimes be pushed to the backside by, Tom and I teach all subjects. Those are sometimes the ones that we push to the back because we don't know how to get students to connect with it all the time. And so I applaud you for being able to do that, for making it real for students, cuz for me that was one of the hard things in social studies and history classes was, how is this real for me? And you're doing that for your students.
Another really good example that I really like is my American history kids. And I really loved in the spring semester because with the curriculum, this usually fell like right after Valentine's Day, and it worked so great. And I just came into class, looking kind of frustrated. And of course, the kids are like, "What's wrong, Miss Rogers?" And I'm like, my friend is in just a really toxic relationship. And I think that she needs to like break up with her boyfriend. And we talk about how he takes advantage of her and how he doesn't listen to her when she has concerns and blah 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 blah. And like my kids are all like, kids are nosy, they want to be a part of your life and all this stuff. And "Miss Rogers, your friend really needs to break up with her boyfriend." And I'm like, "You know what, you're right. I should text my friend America and tell her that it's time to break up with England. And it's like, it's all, and then you just say, oh my gosh. And it makes sense and it's interesting and it's cool because, I'm very big. It's very important to me to stay as neutral as possible in history. So, you even get a discussion of some kids that are like, no, like she should do XYZ, and other people that are like, no, they should do XYZ. And it's very interesting because, I think that, especially when it comes to, I think history can be a very gray area. And even when it comes to, the American Revolution, there are some things that are miscommunication. There are some things that are exaggerated, like the Boston Massacre, like 100% colonist exaggeration kind of thing. And it's just really interesting to frame it in a way that the kids literally see it as like a relationship issue and a toxic relationship. And that's really cool. And I really like that one also.
That's an amazing way to frame it. And it does, then it makes sense to kids. And then you have, like you said, those rich discussions. And history can be a gray area. And sometimes you you have a difference of opinion. I'm curious, like with little kids, fourth graders, fifth graders, those conversations can be kind of skirted around sometimes, or as a teacher, you can kind of direct them. How is it? How do you handle it when there might not be an agreement, when there might not be people with the same perspectives in the same room having conversations that don't have like a nice little bow to wrap around them, you know?
I think that so I am that I'm willing to risk it all teacher that is like there is no way to have like a nice little bow when we're going to talk about it and have this conversation anyways. But I don't ever let myself discuss. I never let myself be a part of in the conversation. I always let the kids facilitate. And I think this could also work for younger kids. I love having discussions in American history class. And usually what I will do is I will take two very contrasting opinions and put them on the overhead, one on this side of the screen, one on this side of the screen. And I'll say, read the one, pick one that you most agree with, and go stand on that side of the room.
Mm-hmm.
And you give the kids like a good 10 seconds to disperse. And then, okay, discuss. And we always set ground rules. I have I've done this for like 3 years, but I've still never had a real big issue of the kids screaming at each other, disrespecting each other. We set the expectation very strict at the beginning. And if I sense that anyone's starting to get a little heated, we just go to someone else that's on that side of the room and they can take a breather and they can jump back in when they're ready to. But I think, just framing in a way of, hey, this is an opinion and this is an opinion. Which one do you identify with the most? And letting the kids discuss why or what they think. And it's also very interesting to see as kids discuss, because some kids really like to talk, some kids like to listen. It's very interesting to see the kids who are listening start switching sides. It's very interesting. I love it. I really love it for them. And I think that if we're able to implement that at an early age, that would be so phenomenal.
Well, and it's funny that you're talking about this activity because Tom and I got together this weekend and we were just talking about the importance of getting kids to converse with each other in healthy ways in low risk situations so that when they do grow up, and it's not that we don't have deep and important conversations in fourth and fifth grade, but when they get to high school and they're starting to identify who they are as people, what their morals are, what their values are, they can have those conversations in healthy ways, right? When the risks are brought up to a new level, like we can still disagree and be friends.
Something that I still am in awe of is I have a friend who works at a restorative charter school, and their main focus is social emotional learning for these kids. And I'll never forget one of the stories she told me of, teaching the kids that it's okay to say how you're feeling about a topic is totally fine and valid. And I think my favorite example to use, because it shows that then like really so many kids can participate in this, is there's a kid in her class whose family is considered a little scary to some of the other kids. And this 13-year-old boy was able to convey in a sharing circle of, I don't want people to be afraid of me. I want people to feel like they can be my friend and they can come talk to me without me. And I think that was so amazing. And I think that if kids are taught and if it's really focused to these kids, that being able to share their thoughts and feelings and even ideas and opinions, that can open so many doors for kids that have not had open doors before.
Yeah, I think the skills that to have the conversations, so important, because then
Yeah.
with the conversations and the listening, like you said, it's interesting to see which kids listen, because then you see this changes in thinking going on.
Yeah.
And I think the listening skills sometimes are lacking, and I think those listening skills are um, super important to really get into fourth, fifth graders, pre-kindergartners, high school kids, adults even. Um,
I think also teaching kids that you should, when you're not speaking in a conversation, you should be not speaking to listen, not speaking to plan what you're going to say next. I think that there's a big difference, and a lot of people don't even realize they're doing it. They don't do it on purpose. They just don't realize that's what's happening in their mind. And I think that, again, that's something even adults have trouble with. I have to sometimes remind my own parents, hey, you listening to what I'm saying? And that's okay. Like everyone is capable of learning. And I think that's something a lot of individuals forget, that it doesn't matter how young or how old, you are capable of growing in this area.
It's it's crazy that you're saying this stuff because Tom and I had that discussion as well a couple weeks ago, just about how, as a society, like, do we really know how to listen to each other? Or are we always on the defensive where when somebody says something, we feel like we have to attack back right away? Like,
Yeah.
what if we teach each other to, like, hey, I'm going to say this and you can't say anything back for like 1 minute. So there's your think time, right? And it's not some awkward silence. Like, I love what you're saying because that's where we need to get to.
Yes, and I think you even made me think of, this week I've had a lot of people send me DMs attacking me for, embarrassing my own kids who don't want their stories told because I might not be using names, but I am still humiliating them. And like every time I'm thinking, do you not see the giant square on the screen that says this isn't my story and that this is like something sent to me by some anonymous person? Like I feel as if people want so badly to be right or to be a hero in some sense that they're willing to look past evidence in their face, and they're not willing to listen. They just have it in their mind that someone is a bad person or something is a bad idea or something is something they don't like, and they've just decided that's the way that it's going to be, and they won't listen to someone to give them an additional information. They won't do their own research. They've just decided this is how it is and I don't like it, and I think that's a problem.
when I was a kid, if you didn't like what somebody was saying or doing, like you just ignored it. Like,
Right.
but people are so empowered this year with even with teachers, or I feel like social media has just like lit a fire up under some people that really have no business responding to anything in the first place.
And I did a video on this at the beginning of the year because I remember when the year started, first week of school, our friends on social media, my colleagues at school, everyone was so surprised. They said the kids just are misbehaving a little bit more than usual. And I was confused as to why they were surprised. I really didn't know why everyone was so surprised by it. On
Mm.
Facebook, people were surprised, TikTok, YouTube, in the classroom. And I'm like, y'all, these kids have done nothing but listen to adults for the last 2 years. They haven't been interacting with people. They haven't seen people face to face. They haven't been able to get to know people on their own. They've just been listening to what their adults are saying, not even just their adults. I know lots of parents who in the last couple years have complained that, oh, teachers don't know what they're doing. They hate their I had kids who said that their parents told them I just didn't want to come back to work. And I was like, dude, if I could be in the classroom, I would literally I'm clawing my eyes out over here. I also know teachers who told their kids, like their students, that they were plague-filled rats.
Mm.
Kids are parroting what they've been hearing for the last 2 years. And I think the adult world kind of needs a little bit of a wake up call of they're parroting what you are showing them. And that's how you not only interact with people in front of them, but that's how you talk about people in front of them. And that's what they're mimicking. And that if we want them to do better, we have to do better first, you know?
I'm with you on the fact that, like, why were we surprised that things are hard coming back when kids haven't been doing all of those things? And I
Mhm.
think that I know that the term, and I always mess it up, so I apologize. It's toxic positivity. I know that always gets thrown around, but I wish that we could spin this moment that we're in into a we have such a beautiful opportunity to help so many kids grow so much. It's going to be hard, but that's the beauty in what we get to do every day.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's very, I don't even know how to put it into words. I feel like on one hand, it's like teachers, yeah, this is a whole lot harder. We just have to be a little bit more creative with what we want to do with these kids. But on the other hand, it almost is impossible to be able to make those changes and do what we need to do for our kids when we don't have as much support as we really need to make those changes, you know? And it's kind of like a double-edged sword.
It is. It's a hard time to be a teacher. It's a hard time to be a kid. I'm reminded of that in my fourth grade class a lot. Like you were saying, we've been expected to sit and learn and listen and soak up and not play and not be around other people. And that's really hard. But it's hard to be a teacher too. Gosh.
And I feel like, this is something that we talked about on my podcast, is that before COVID, there was a list of expectations and a list of things that we need to do, our giant to-do list as teachers. And over the last decade, it's just piled and piled and piled and more and more and more. And it was already becoming very unsustainable. And then COVID
Mhm.
hit, and that entire list was put on hold. And we got an entire new list of things that were new responsibilities, new things that we needed to do, new things to look out for. And now that we're back, society doesn't realize how unsustainable it is to really put those two lists together, because even just one was pushing it. Two is just it's almost impossible, and I think this we had teacher tired before, but it has never been like what it was now. It
Oh
just
no.
has it
I think
hasn't.
our superintendent, he came on and talked to us for a little bit, and he did a good job of explaining, because we talked about that for a little bit with him. He did a good job of explaining and creating the analogy. It's like we were climbing up a mountain and we can't go any higher, so we scaled to a new mountain. We don't need to go back to the old mountain. We don't need to go back to where everything was piled on. Like, let's figure out what kids need. Let's go deeper with what they need, and let's create a new path in education. And I think that that's kind of the point where we're at with what you're saying. Like, teachers, there's a teacher shortage. How are we going to fix that? Like, let's create a new path where teachers want to come in, because our job is to help kids in deep and meaningful ways.
And the argument that I always hear in regards to like teacher pay and teacher whatever is, oh, well, I had a bad teacher, or oh, my kid has a bad teacher. And my response to that is, okay, what are you doing to make the good ones want to stay? If you're not willing to keep like do what you need to keep good teachers or convince them to come back to the profession, you're only going to be left with bad teachers. It's not a, oh, I have a bad teacher, so I want all teachers to suffer. Well, then you're only going to be, and I don't even like using the word bad teachers. I like to use words like people whose hearts aren't really into it, or people who like don't want to go out and do other things. But in reality, that's what you're going to be left with if you don't give good teachers a reason to stay.
That's right. That's right. Rebecca, this has been so much fun. It's been fun learning from you in the Benedict Arnold house. It's been fun to learn how you have your emotional engagement with students. At the end of every episode, we always ask, what does the world need now? There was a song in the 60s about what the world needs, and it was love, sweet love. And sometimes Josh sings if he doesn't have a mouthful of water, but
What the world needs now.
and in the
Oh,
60s
you're
it
not
was
going? Keep going, Josh.
Is love, sweet love. That's as far as I go.
that's as
That's
far
your
as he goes.
past portion at Miss America.
Got some talent.
Yeah.
Mr. Omaha, everybody.
Mr. Omaha. Rebecca, to make the world a better place, what does the world need?
To listen to each other.
I love that.
Short.
Short and sweet, but man, we really do need more of it.
Yeah.
And I think that you talked a lot about it throughout the episode. We really could be a better society, a better world, if we did probably what we were all told as kids, is put on those listening ears. Right?
And
Yeah.
listening to understand, not listening to respond.
I like that.
Difference.
I
Huge
love that.
difference.
And I'm going to say it right now, is I think that I'm going to go in tomorrow to my class and I'm going to use those words, is let's practice listening to understand, not listening to respond. Let's actually hear what our friends are saying. I like that saying now. It's going to stick with me.
I'll put on a t-shirt.
I like it. I'd buy it. I'd buy it.
Big ears, big ears.
Project.
Mhm.
Well, Rebecca, thank you so much for being here with us tonight. This was an absolute honor.
Thank you for having me. Anything for you guys, really.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's our show. We're so thankful and appreciative that you took your time to listen to our guest, Rebecca Rogers. Hopefully you're ready for another week of changing lives, and hopefully what the world needs now is helping you to sustain your inspiration as we journey through this school year together. If it is, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. It helps us to get inspirational educator stories out.
We hope that as you head out, you remember the biggest factor that plays into student success is you. Your love, your passion, your empathy, your dedication. It's exactly what the world needs now. Thank you for everything you do. Have a good one.